Hello and welcome back to the Toulouse campaign Abridged. Previously we went to attack the Papal States, storming the walls of Rome and eventually taking over, which, while at first being a bit iffy, proved to be a good idea because now we're the centre of the Christian world and they all like us as a result. We also, while we were there, took the rest of southern Italy and Sicily off the Kingdom of Sicily, so now we're just sitting pretty. There was a concluding moment to our war with Sicily because whatever they had eventually came back from wherever they were. To attack Taranto, we just killed them instantly. That's annoying because if like one guy attacks a town, it damages all the buildings inside because of how sieges work, even if they don't maintain the siege for a turn. Super annoying, just have to spend some money to get around that. Now, we've got some business going on after that, because rather than just sitting around, I thought we might as well actually do something. So we're going to sail out and participate in a small war going on between Flanders and the Mamluk Sultanate, which I'm involved in because I'm allied to Flanders. All the other stuff I'm doing is just gradually converting all the buildings in Italy and spending my vast reserves of money on that. So let's skip forwards to our forces arriving at the Mamluk Sultanate's capital. We arrived to see there's pretty much nothing here. They've got one unit of garrison and no army. I'm guessing this place used to be controlled by Flanders and they just lost it, so it hasn't been converted over and stuff. Meaning, we can move in and take it for free. I make the same mistake I did in the last episode there, misclicking on the naval assault, but eventually we get the attack this turn. Nice balance bar, we'll just move on in. This is actually the only region the Mamluk Sultanate controlled, so we would be destroying their faction if it wasn't for me doing that subjugation. So that's nice. There's no point controlling this territory because it's off on its own, and instead we get another sultan to add to our collection. We've already got one already, and a caliph. Soon we will be the champions not only of Christianity with the Pope, but of Islam as well. I think there's just one more caliph for us to collect out there. Once all my conversions in Italy are done, I needed something to do with my vast income, so I decided to see if we can buy some factions. My experience in Attila before has been that you can often get a faction to surrender to you if you just throw loads of money at them, and it works out right here. I buy the faction across the Mediterranean from our new Mamluk Sultan vassals, giving us another vassal in this random faction in Greece. So that's handy, not really of any practical use, but it feels good. It's something to do with the money. And once I realised, well, we can probably do this to a lot of other one-region factions and make a massive vassal empire, let's raise the taxes to get more money and try and do that sooner rather than later. We do get -10 public order for putting the taxes on high there, but we also get +10 from the presence of Christianity thanks to our Pope control. Overall then, we're sort of stable and we can run high taxes for a while to save up cash for this land grab. Sometimes we can sweeten the deal by throwing in a political marriage as well, like right here with Portugal. Just throwing all of my cash at them in this next turn wasn't enough to vassalize, but if I agree to do a marriage with them, then we can vassalize them. This does ruin our politics because you lose influence for doing this, but I didn't really care that much about that. I just thought, well, let's get Portugal. That secures our Iberian territories a bit more now they are subservient to us. But as well as buying everyone, I did want a military project, so I decided to sail across the Med and go for the Seljuk pretenders. There was some minor faction across there that I could go take out with relatively few diplomatic consequences. However, the next turn, they're gone, so that plan ended right away. While looking around for another plan, I realised that Jerusalem is currently controlled by a pretender faction from the Abids, so we can go over there and invade, again probably with minimal diplomatic consequences, and after all it is the Holy Land, so the Pope might be pleased with us if we actually make that our project, so we'll go for it. In the meantime, we're back in the diplomacy screen, making some more purchases. Here I got a pretty cheap purchase of Navarre if I also did a political marriage. So that means another piece of Iberia is now vassalized to us, and I realise we only need to get the Crown of Aragon as well, and then we'll have all of it. I've got plenty of money still in the bank after that very cheap vassalization, so we can do that right away. I throw all of my money out on the table, they express an interest in being my vassal, and then we immediately start taking the money away and trying to talk them down to get it a bit cheaper. You can type in numbers here to try and find the exact amount at which they will accept your deal, but we don't care too much about that, so we just throw 30 grand at them, and that's that. Now, all of Iberia is either directly controlled by the Empire, or it's all part of the Empire's vassal network, so we have hegemony over this region, and lots of other parts of the world as well, and our network will still grow from here. Politics fell apart at about this point in the campaign. You can see here as I hack through the unlimited supply of bad news that's put before me every turn. We have lost loads of our power. I think it was because our king died and because I've also recently married off all of the daughters in the royal family. We don't really have anyone left anymore, so our influence is gone. We've got like no control due to just random events. And now we need to start building back up. Everyone's super disloyal, and that actually turns out to be a problem. At least Jerusalem looks nice and undefended as my transport fleets arrive. It's also already on fire, so it seems like we're not going to have that much trouble getting in. For my next purchase, I'm up here looking to purchase Wales, because while I'm the #1 faction, England is the #2 faction. They're our main rival right now, and of course they're right next to us, so that makes it extra rivalrific. I thought then I'll focus my buying on trying to get all of the other British Isles factions. We've got basically Wales, Ireland and Scotland that we can get on our side. All together, that will roughly match England's strength in the area. So we'll try and do that just to annoy our rivals. Now here's that loyalty problem I mentioned. We've actually started to get some betrayals. Some guy has taken half of this trash stack away. The new leader of the trash stack is the new king. And he's starting the Toulousian Pretenders, a new faction. In this particular case, it's not going to get very far because we have so much stuff just hanging around. We can just pile on him from all directions, and there's the balance bar we get. Since his army was so bad, of course, we probably didn't need to worry about that guy too much anyway. So he goes away for now. Then I started trying to find someone who would pay me to declare war on the Abid Pretenders, and while talking to the Abid Sultanate here, I realised that I'm at war still with the Toulousian Pretenders, meaning there's another rebellion somewhere. Therefore I have to go looking around my territory like who's trying to break away. In the list here it finally reveals it's down there, it's Marrakesh. So I'm guessing the governor, or maybe there was a trash stack there or something, has gone away. I think it must have been the governor because it's just a few units rebelling against us. He's gone rogue, his loyalty was too low. In this particular case again, we don't need to worry because even though I only have one army nearby, and it's an army of trash, altogether it ends up being enough to get us a really good balance part on this siege. So just need to get a ladder and then we can sort out that rebellion, and once again our civil war will be over. Once we get to Jerusalem, indeed there's nothing there, so that's just going to be a stomp once we get ready with some siege equipment for next turn. Now it's time for another purchase, and this time I decided to buy Epirus, only really because the places up in Britannia were too expensive. There was a cheap faction I could buy this turn. The Empire Epirus expands our control over Greece. I'm going to try and get the other one as well just for completion. Although we are starting to buy factions that are actually at war with people, so their bad relations might draw us into other wars. Not that that especially matters at this point in the campaign since we're so strong. We did get a bit of a shock at the start of the next turn though, because amid all the notifications, it tells us there is a famine. Indeed, we have run out of food all of a sudden. Now before we had like 1,000 food, so I wasn't really sure what was going on here. We want to solve this as soon as possible because you get attrition and all kinds of debuffs for having less than 0 food. And each region gets a public order hit if it has less than 0 food as well, which is a particular issue in this mod because it doesn't have the province region system. It's actually harder to balance food out because you can't use food from other regions to sort all that out. Anyway, the point is, we're in trouble here, and the ultimate reason was a loss of fertility. Before, virtually everywhere was like on the top 2 green fertility things, and now it's all gone down to the bottom 2, so everywhere's just stopped making food. I'm guessing this is representing the end of the Golden Age or something that was mentioned earlier. So we're getting screwed over, but we can get around this since in the game there is already a built-in way to deal with loss of fertility. And that is to convert all of your crops to livestock farms instead. They give you a bit less food than crops, but they don't rely on fertility, so if you have low fertility, they actually give you way more food than crops. Therefore, we're going to do it. They also give you more money as a nice side effect, so we'll make some cash off all these conversions, but in the meantime it's going to cost us a lot of cash and stop us from buying vassals. How inconvenient. So I'll just do that in the background. In the meantime, we have captured Jerusalem after a nothing battle. I also did that siege at Marrakesh as well, by the way, just couldn't be bothered to show it, so that's all sorted. We've got a rebellion already in Jerusalem, it was already building up, so we'll just move on over and challenge them. They have nothing by the looks of things. So down they go, and with that, the Holy Land is secured. Although it's in terrible condition, this is going to be another money sink for us as we try and sort the place out. And I am going to leave a full stack here to control public order. Since there are all kinds of different religions going on here, we're going to get massive debuffs. Plus, it's the Holy Land for lots of neighbouring major factions, so maybe they'll come over here and try to attack it as well, so best to leave a garrison. However, the other army is going to go off on an adventure. I had to pay a dear 20 grand to get the neighbouring Kingdom of Jerusalem, ironically enough, to let me walk through their territory, which I wanted to do because the Ibid pretenders that we're at war with do have another territory up here to the northeast somewhere, so I wandered off looking for that. Discovering some more minor factions along the way, ripe for vassalization once we get our money flow back again. Anyway, here we are moving into this new hostile territory, and this time there's actually something going on here. We need to do a battle. The enemy's armies aren't that strong, but they're all together and they're sitting on top of the garrison of Aleppo here. The nice thing is that one general is standing on our side of the town out in front of the wall, so we can just do this right now with a siege draw out and fight all this stuff at once. Actually, the army at the back isn't involved in this, but most of the stuff at once. They're not even all that strong once all of their stuff is combined together here. So, a nice opportunity for a siege draw out, and more to the point, an opportunity to actually fight a battle. There was a long build-up because the map was a big hill up to the enemy's deployment zone, so I gradually walked around to be next to the enemy and they rotated. So we're fighting across the face of the hill with no particular disadvantage for us. Handy. I wanted to move up and do some skirmishing with my crossbows. Even though the enemy have a ranged advantage, I just wanted to do it anyway. But they did not oblige me. Once I got close enough to start firing, they fired a couple of volleys and then started attacking with other units, so I'm going to go back. That cav wedge is coming towards my crossbows, they need to get out of the way, and we need to also advance with our cav because the enemy have so many ranged units, they have once again got them all isolated on the flanks. So we'll try and just run them off the field. This cav attack from the enemy is going to do absolutely nothing. They end up getting wedged in that gap between my two spear units, and we'll just quickly kill them. Very nice. With that sorted, I started to advance all my infantry up, but things got real messy real fast because the enemy started blobbing up in the middle, and so did I as my attack orders were tracking their movements. So there's not going to be any clear line of battle. We're going to have a big brawl, and I'll try and micro the cav to get around behind them. At the left end of the line, things don't go very well because the enemy archers didn't rout and they put a spear unit into the fight and they routed my cav instead. At the right end of the line, things are better. We did rout 2 units of enemy archers. They sent their cav to fight us, and then we beat those cav as well. 2 of the units up there are my knights, so our right flank presence is certainly stronger. We hacked through pretty much all of their cav up there. Here are my knights, in fact, right now, just easily taking down the enemy cav, and then we'll move them around behind the enemy for some serious attacks. My medium cav are already doing that, but they are being pelted with naphtha. The enemy have the rare grenadier unit in their army. Luckily, we can get them into melee with the cav right now. The only issue is that these medium cav actually aren't very good. They can't beat archers in melee, as we've seen before. So that fight won't go all that well. We need to get the knights in there pronto. Our left flank is a real mess. The enemy general keeps attacking my units, and we did actually lose a couple of infantry squads up there as well, I believe. However, that doesn't matter all that much at this stage. I'm focusing on taking down this main enemy blob towards the middle. You can see a lot of the blob has its back facing my crossbow, so this is their time to shine. We can get loads of kills, in theory at least, if they're firing. They might be, I can't really tell, it doesn't look like they are, but now and again they might get some kills. And those infantry have just defeated their opponent, so they'll now charge down the hill into the blob as well for some surround and pound action. The blob kind of broke up as we got close to it, and one of the units moving away was that naphtha squad. They're still alive, and they hit us with some grenades front on. Luckily it doesn't do all that much damage, but pretty nasty stuff. probably best to not let them keep throwing, so I'm going to disengage some nearby cav to take them out. Meanwhile, the crossbows are still in a great position to attack that blob and finish things off. The other fights you can see going on around the place are a mixed bag, but with my cav finishing off group by group, we're going to win this eventually at this stage. We just need to micro the cav and make sure they're all attacking nice juicy targets and the backs of the enemy's infantry lines. Soon that's all sorted. Their general comes back from chasing some of my men around and engages with my cav right here. This charge looks okay but doesn't do very much. He gets stuck against my knights. Now our general's knights will attack and those spears can attack. He's doomed. Our crossbows should allow us to win those remaining infantry fights in the meantime, and if we don't, the cav will soon be freed up again. Here was a case where our crossbows are ideal. They have this really heavy two-handed axe unit, so it needs to be attacked with an armor-piercing ranged unit ideally, and that fits the description of a crossbow. Whether they're actually attacking again, that's the big question, but in theory, that's a great matchup. Their general dies, and that's the real thing that ends the battle. Everything starts routing. We do want to keep running though, because there are plenty of reinforcements on the field. We need to make the best of this siege draw-out situation. Unfortunately, we did not get the complete destruction. We did kill their garrison army, but the regular army that is garrisoned had some units escape. That means no free settlement. We also don't get many captives because of the old reinforcement glitch oversight thing. And now we're going to have to just go for a siege at Aleppo. Luckily, there is pretty much nothing left. I think that balance bar is being generous to the enemy in this situation. I'm sure once we have a ladder, that will all be sorted. That won't mean an end to the fighting though, because something I'm surprised didn't happen earlier finally happens. Someone declares war on one of my many vassals, and it looks like it's Aragon declaring war on the Almohad Caliphate. So yes, this is probably going to happen if you have the Muslim faction vassals as a Christian faction and Christian allies. We're going to end up with these dilemmas. In this case, I wouldn't mind conquering both sides, but I'm going to end up going for the decline and break alliance option, because this just means we're not in the war at all, and I'm going to use the time we get to set up to conquer the Almohad Caliphate. The Crown of Aragon won't be able to get here in time, so this is effectively my war against them. But because they're not at war with me for now, we have time to move over our stacks of trash hanging around to be at the border, then we'll join the war properly and just immediately win. That's the plan. Far away at Aleppo, again we're immediately winning. There's nothing here, and some troops from the Empire of Trebizond, a nearby faction, came down to help out as well. This would be the perfect time to get a subjugation option to just make a new faction and go away, since this is detached from our main body of territory. But we don't get that, so I move on in and just take it. It's going to have to be an exclave for us. It's actually somewhat safe because it is surrounded on three sides by Christian territory, although to the north these Trebizond guys are the other Christians who I suppose we don't like, so have to be suspicious of them. Here's some infuriating negotiation. I wanted to offer them less money, but after clicking a lot of the buttons on the screen, I ended up not offering them less money. In the end, I had to pay them to get this trade deal and non-aggression, so hopefully that border's a little bit secure. Anyway, more important diplomacy needs to be done. We make a purchase of Ireland, the Kingdom of Connaught. So there we go, we're still expanding our influence in the British Isles. We've now got those two regions right next to each other. Two more from Scotland are destined to be ours if we can get enough cash for it. Moving on a couple of turns, we're now ready for our Almohad Caliphate antics, so I talked to Portugal to get into the war, and now we can go. We only have 2 stacks of pure trash, but I felt like that's probably enough. Moving into the first siege, well, 1 stack isn't going to be enough, but when we bring in the second stack, I thought we can clear out all these little groups and do a defeat in detail strategy. Annoyingly though, the AI is onto me. They just run away, which is the right thing to do. So in the end, we're not going to be picking up easy wins here like I figured we might be able to. We are going to be taking attrition from being in the desert, but it looks like the enemy are also taking attrition from that and from disease. So overall, we're going to set up for a siege where everyone is just constantly dying. I could leave things right here, but actually I did come back to this later in the turn, so we'll see them again. First, I looked into some other business. There was another Almohad Caliphate army that was standing by Marrakesh. Not quite sure why they were there. Maybe they were planning to sail out to go and attack Aragon. But anyway, I had a stack of trash at Fez that had come down from Iberia, and they could come even further down to hit this army. Looks like it had already taken a load of attrition from walking across the desert to get here, so really there was nothing to that and they just die instantly. Then I wanted to start another war over in the Middle East, because I realised there's another isolated faction we can prey on, the Jerusalem Pretenders, who control this one region. So I moved out using my costly military access again to attack these guys, just a random town with no garrison, well, no army garrisoning it, that is to say. It does have a good garrison that actually has a slight advantage against us. I guess they have some heavy troops and stuff in there. So we just set up on that siege. I'll eventually grab the Aleppo troops to help out with that as well, so we'll certainly have the advantage. This is the more dodgy situation. Amid all the smoke of everyone being on fire and dying of pox, I realised that if I break the siege, I can actually go and attack that final army to get a siege draw out, one where they're less likely to run away because they'll have enough stuff. However, I can't get my second army to participate, and that made me have second thoughts, because I thought, well, our first army of just levy spears probably can't beat their garrison and their 2 half stacks at once. So I end up restarting the siege with the other army this time. What I should do here is just stand around, but instead I make a mistake. I decided to send an army to go and attack the siege draw out bait army from the enemy, but they just ran away again. And that screws me over actually, because I don't have enough points left to get back close enough to my army doing the siege so that they're in reinforcement range of each other. And that leads to this move from the enemy. All of their remaining free armies come to attack my army on the other side of the town. Of course, the garrison and the army inside the town won't participate because of my siege, so it's not that bad. But more to the point, we're saved by what looks like an integrity rebellion thing going on amid the enemy. Their main force, with most of their troops, has been split, I think. And that little grey army in the top right is the result. So the enemy's numbers have just been severely depleted as they came in to attack me. We've got real lucky right here, although the enemy still have the advantage, and we still have a long line of levies to use, which, as we've seen before, aren't the most effective troops. They might even be the least effective troops. Well, let's find out by challenging the enemy to this battle next time.